Students, Bahar, who were not part of the protest. I'm curious, what have they said about all this disruption?
It's interesting. I think students, regardless of their involvement in the protests, are really clear about how this has sort of upended the daily operations of the school, especially following the very large police response last night. I came across a line of students on West 114th Street waiting to eat dinner at sort of a makeshift dining hall because students are locked out of Columbia's campus right now for, security reasons introduced or monitored rather by the NYPD. They couldn't access their dining halls, right? And so, I spoke to several low-income students who said, we can't afford to buy food, out in businesses. And so the student council had set up a dining hall for students to eat dinner last night. I also spoke to students who, mostly freshmen who live on campus, who again were asked to leave the campus perimeter last night by police, waiting outside, sort of sleepily standing outside the gates around midnight last night, waiting to be let back in into their dormitories.
So City Hall, the NYPD, and Columbia all have seemed to allude to outside agitators leading the charge to break into and occupy the building. What do we know about that?
That's right. So Mayor Eric Adams and top NYPD officials sort of stood together earlier yesterday evening. They showed news reporters a 2-minute video strung together with social media clips of the occupation of Hamilton Hall. But, they haven't provided much credible evidence to suggest who these people are that they're referring to, right? So, we've asked police to name the people that they're describing. They say that some of these people are, quote unquote, have been known to the NYPD for several years. Though the NYPD has declined to name these people, share details about how they've identified them, and give us a sense of really, any sort of details about who these people might be and what role they played at Columbia. And certainly, student organizers, Columbia faculty have maintained that the majority of the presence on campus and the majority of the protests are led by the Columbia community.
Bahar, quickly here, just a few seconds left. What are you expecting today on campus? Things to get back to whatever normative is?
I expect students will be exhausted. Those of us listening to the Columbia University student radio, looks like they're taking a much needed, at least few hours off this morning. I think we'll just have to wait and see how and if the protests continue.
Bahar Ostadan, late last night on the Columbia campus and up with us early this morning. Bahar, thank you.
WNYC is supported by the New York Phil presenting Sound On. In the next installment, Kwame Ryan conducts new music by Mary Kayumjan, Hannah Kendall, Michelle Vandera, and Peter Utvish. May 10th at David Geffen Hall. Tickets at nyphil.org.
Does the federal government have the power to lower the price of popular but expensive weight loss medicine?
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com. And by C3 Generative AI. Verified, traceable answers, secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free. Learn more at c3.ai.
I'm David Brancaccio. The Federal Trade Commission is challenging patents on 20 brand name drugs, including Ozempic. That's the diabetes medication that's become a blockbuster success, helping people lose weight. The attempt here is to speed the process toward cheaper generics. Here's Marketplace's Nova Safo.
Critics have accused drug manufacturers of filing dozens, if not hundreds, of patents for individual treatments in order to ward off cheaper generic versions. In its latest battle with the industry, the FTC sent warnings to 10 drug makers, including AstraZeneca, GlaxoSmithKline, and Novo Nordisk, challenging patents on drugs treating weight loss, diabetes, asthma, and other conditions. These drugs are enormously profitable. For example, Novo Nordisk saw sales skyrocket last year to $34 billion, mostly thanks to two drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy, both affect weight loss. The original Ozempic patent could expire by 2032 if the FTC succeeds in its challenge. That would allow generic versions. Novo Nordisk did not comment. This is the second time the Biden administration's FTC has challenged drug patents, the first in September, which led to 3 companies withdrawing listings. Others did not, and the FTC has not said whether it will take further legal action. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
In about 7 hours, we'll hear from the U.S. central banker-in-chief following today's big meeting. Interest rates are not coming down today, but there could be arms-folded hints the Fed will stick with these rates to fight lingering inflation. S&P futures are down 0.5%, NASDAQ futures down 0.8%, with a report on hiring in April coming this morning using data from the payroll company ADP. Ever give up on a Starbucks run because of the line or the wait time on the app? The company says that is one factor hurting sales, as inflation also weighs on consumers. The company's quarterly profits were well below expectations, with foot traffic down 7%. Starbucks stock is down almost 13% in pre-market trading now. The new lavender lattes are doing well, rivaling the popularity of pumpkin spice in the fall, so there's that.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance, providing direct car insurance rates side by side with other insurance carriers. Customers can see rates and find an option that works for their needs. Now that's Progressive. Learn more at Progressive.com. And by Twilio Segment. Segment helps every team access good data that's real-time, clean, and accurate. The result is relevant customer experiences that drive real revenue. Segment.com.
Today, May 1st, is a big day for soon-to-be college students to pick where they want to be in the fall. A lot rides on the decision: academic and social opportunities, what it'll cost, and for some, programs of study that are inclusive. A new law in Alabama that restricts diversity, equity, and inclusion curricula was signed by Governor Kay Ivey in March. SB 129 will prohibit publicly funded institutions from endorsing or requiring DEI programs. It's part of a broader national trend. The mayor of Birmingham has called on black athletes to boycott playing sports at Alabama colleges and universities in a push to repeal the law. Marketplace's special correspondent Lee Hawkins filed this report.
Tuscaloosa is home to the University of Alabama's Crimson Tide football team. It's won 18 national championships and brings in around $200 million annually to its home city. That's just the kind of economic pressure Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin hopes to put on the governor's seat. Mayor Woodfin is asking parents of black and minority athletes to avoid playing for institutions in Alabama and other states promoting anti-DEI legislation. He's also calling for more vocal opposition from Alabama students and university officials.
Don't tell me as a coach, recruiter, you come in my living room, you come on my front porch, and you want my black son to play on your football field or on your basketball court, but you don't want diversity of thought and professors or programs to support my child outside of that football field or outside of the basketball court. So why should they come?
Alabama Governor Kay Ivey said in a written statement that she wants to prevent taxpayer funds from being used to push, quote, a liberal political movement counter to what the majority of Alabamians believe. Critics argue that such legislation undermines academic freedom and the comprehensive understanding of history, while Ivey and other proponents claim it's a return to essential academic values that can stamp out rising ideological division. The University of Alabama has a long tradition of generating revenue based on the labor and talents of black Americans. Even before its official founding, the university began enslaving black people, buying its first slave, a black man named Ben, in 1828. The school used Ben and many others as free labor to construct buildings and support its day-to-day operations. It rented people from local enslavers who served the university for decades. After emancipation, the state of Alabama continued to forbid blacks from attending University of Alabama and other institutions for another century under Jim Crow segregation laws.
Legislators, they have to reckon with themselves of the unintended consequences of creating this stupid law that infringes upon not just black people, but every other group you can think of: women, our immigrant community, those who are handicapped, or deaf or other forms of hearing impairment or blind, or insert whatever disability that exists, or veterans. DEI is not just in support of Black people. When we talk about diversity, when we talk about equity, and when we talk about inclusion, we're talking about every minority group.
The law goes into effect in October. I'm Lee Hawkins for Marketplace.
Lee has a forthcoming book, Nobody's Slave, How Uncovering My Family's History Set Me Free. The book will follow his podcast series here, What Happened in Alabama, which explores the impact of racial violence on his own family. Marketplace.org has more information. I'm David Brancaccio. This is the Marketplace Morning Report, which is from APM American Public Media.
WNYC supporters include Carnegie Hall presenting pianist Yefim Bronfman